And I think we are good to start. So welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining. This is the first in a series of legislator forums sponsored by the Boulder Monitor and the Boulder Transition Advisory Committee. Thank you to BTAC and especially to Drew Dawson, who really had the idea and got this started. Very grateful to him. And very grateful to our legislators who have joined tonight and will join in each month for the length of the session. Senator Edie McClafferty, representing Senate District 38 from Butte, and Representative Marta Portolio, representing House District 75 from Clancy. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
I want to explain what this is, what it's not, and how this will work. I'll say at the start, this is not a debate. It happens that we have a Republican and a Democrat in the same place, but we will not be debating. We will be rather explaining what's going on in the legislature, what the important bills emerging are, and what Edie and Marta are working on themselves, what their priorities are. Really, the objective is to acquaint you, citizens, voters, with your legislators, to provide a window into the legislative process, how this works, and to describe the bills that are important, really of special interest to Jefferson County. And we hope this will be a pathway to engagement, a way to keep citizens informed about what's happening in the legislature, and hopefully engage deeper, more consistently in the legislative process. So here's what will happen. Each of Edie and Marta will have about 10 minutes to talk about the first month of the 67th session. I'll talk about the issues and bills that they have become involved on, what they're focusing on. What other bills are emerging that have special resonance, consequence for Jefferson County, and hopefully give us a window into how things actually work, how the legislative process functions. So they'll each have 10 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions. I've actually received a good number of questions beforehand. Thank you for those. I've shared those with Marta and with Edie in advance. We'll get into those first. If you have questions in the course of this conversation, just put them in the chat. There should be a chat button, or I think it's a question button in your menu. Please write your name and the question or the comment. And again, we're looking for questions, comments that are substantive, related to what's going on in the legislature. This is not an opportunity to raise, divisive, confrontative, kind of gotcha things. So I think we're ready. Let's get started. Marta, since you are the new kid here, I should say this is Marta's first term as representative. So congratulations on that. Edie, this is your 6th, I believe, 2 as senator and 4 as representative.
Right.
So Marta, how's it been? Tell us what's going on.
Well, thank you for calling me a kid, first of all. Well, it's been an honor, an absolute honor, and it has been a whirlwind of a month. It has absolutely flown by. It's been an honor and a very steep learning curve for me to not only try to read and understand the bills, but to actually learn the process in which a bill is introduced, the process in which you apply the rules to pass and not pass, maybe some strategy therein. I'm currently on 4 committees as a freshman, which I was somewhat concerned a little bit about being effective if I'm, bogged down in committee, but it's been a wonderful experience. I'm on state administration, which meets Monday through Friday. It's a Monday through Friday committee, and we begin at 8 a.m. and we can go all morning until around lunchtime. And then I go to the House floor and we look at the bills on the House floor and vote on the House floor. And those are bills that have come out of committee. And this is for people that absolutely don't watch or know anything about the process. So I'm explaining everything. And then on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm in education. And that's my afternoon committee on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And local government on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then my 4th committee is kind of an on-call committee called Legislative Administration. So state administration deals with issues like benefits with state workers, Veterans Affairs, elections. I've heard bills in those categories so far. Local government, I've heard, and those are going to be bills in which we deal with issues at the county level. I've heard bills regarding local health boards as it relates to county commissioners and the governing body, as well as the process for zoning laws and maybe forming different fire districts. Education, we've looked at the incentive that the governor has as far as increasing base pay, inflation, funding, transformational learning. I've presented 2 bills, which I will talk about briefly. It seems, at least in the committees I've been, and the feeling, of course, on my side of the aisle is in light of COVID, and we've been dealing with that for almost a year, is a strong push, I would say, for constituents who feel like they've lost their voice, or they've lost their businesses and feel like maybe local health boards have had too much control. And so I've seen bills that deal with having their voice they want their voice heard through elected officials. But then I've seen on the other side of the aisle, that they don't want the process bogged down in government. So a couple of bills I've seen, I think House Bill 121 is a really good bill. It gives, I think, power back to the local governing body and voice for the constituents, but it's not too overbearing, if you will. And also, I thought there was a really good bill in state administration that Representative Jones brought, and it was based on funding in an emergency declaration. That the legislature, I think, didn't feel like they had a voice as far as how that money was going to be spent. So that bill introduces, it gives the executive the ability to spend 5%, which is still quite a chunk of money in this particular situation. It doesn't have to do with fires. It has to do with this extended emergency that we find ourselves in. And having, polling the legislature to see if they can get together and have a voice. And I think that's where there's a lot of people on our side of the aisle that are feeling like, where is our voice? And so through the legislature, that's the citizens' voice. And so I've heard a lot of that. And so I want to explain how you do a bill. So somebody presents an idea, and in committee. So we've got a committee, we listen to the person, the sponsor on their bill. And then there's a time for proponents, opponents, and informational witnesses. And then after everyone has presented, then the committee has an opportunity to ask any of those particular people questions. And then maybe a day, 2, 3 days later, the committee takes executive action on that bill. And then if it passes, it goes to the House floor or therefore the Senate floor on the other side. And then there's a sometimes good floor debate. And then if it passes, it goes to either of the houses. So I'll talk about a couple bills that I presented so far. But that is the process. And so far for me, I've presented two bills, House Bill 68 and House Bill 88. I'll go to House Bill 88 first because that was kind of a minor one. It came out of the interim state administration committee that went on between the two sessions. And it was basically a cleanup bill for the teacher retirement system. It updated information to bring it in compliance with IRS standards, basically for the required minimum distribution. The age changed from 70 and a half to 72. So minor changes. Obsolete language, for example, signing up when you sign up for your teacher retirement system, you used to get a packet, say from the clerk at the school, and sign it and then give it to the teacher retirement system. And now you can do that all online at the teacher retirement system. So that was my first bill, and it happened the first week. And so I presented that on Friday. So that one was a good bill. Having the state particular, that the agency behind me, you know, this was not a stressful bill. And then my next bill is near and dear to my heart. I presented it in Education Committee, and that is House Bill 68, sorry. And House Bill 68 enables early enrollment for military children. And essentially it, military families right now, when their parents receive official permanent change of station orders, those are their transfer orders, their kids are not eligible to register for courses or any sort of specialized academic programs until they are physically located in the district. And so a lot of times, as we know, kids register for their classes in the spring, and parents will get their orders, the military parents get their orders in the spring and move in the summer. So the kids are then behind, they don't get to enroll. So this actually says that the school board trustees are required to allow these kids to enroll in classes. And I think it's a good one for our military kids. I think it's only fair. They can hit the ground running. They're not behind. And it also is actually good, I think, for administration, because then they can actually project their population for the next year. I think it's a win-win. I presented that in committee, and 100% of the people passed that. And on the floor, it was 100-0. And then I presented it this week in the Senate Education Committee and passed it on to a senator to present on the Senate floor. So that was all very interesting. I think as far as learning the process, I have one other one coming up that I am going to present, and it's a pretty, I would say it's a extensive education bill, in that I want to provide flexibilities in licensure. If we can't, we're trying to recruit and retain good teachers. And I've heard from, say, substitute teachers that are licensed in other states that maybe they have, this one would have, I believe, 5 years. They have to have at least 5 years in good standing. And I want to be able to look at why we should be able to get them in the school, not why they shouldn't be able to work at the school. And then I'm also working on CTE, expanding CTE. So it's not sitting in the seat, it's not butts in the seat, as we like to say. It's getting out and doing work type of education that they can then eventually apply to the workforce. And I think that's a great thing. And I have the Montana associations, like the school board. I think we've worked together. I think we're all on board, and I think we're going to make our public education an even better system. So that's my goal, and I sure appreciate it. And I'd love to talk to anybody if they want to talk about the process. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Marta. So just to explain the reason the bill for military kids is near and dear to your heart is that you are a retired Air Force officer, right?
I didn't retire, but I am a veteran. I had 13 years as a space operations officer, and I'm a mom, and I was on the school board. So I kind of, I understand all facets. So that was a great bill to carry.
And to explain one reference you made to House Bill 121, that is the bill that would allow, as I understand it, county commissioners or city officials to amend or undo the orders of local health officers. Is that right?
I look at it more in the positive, quite frankly. I look at it as a hand and them working hand in hand together, quite frankly. To me, it's just allowing that government oversight. And I think if you have a local health board and commissioners that work together, and that's one thing I found out in all of those hearings, that every local health board is made up completely different than other local health boards. There's some that have 7 people, 5 people, some have a county commissioner on it, some have doctors, nurses, dentists. It's very interesting.
I think one thing we've discovered as a function of the pandemic is that the statute determining health boards and health officers is really vague and ambiguous and subject to all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah.
Yes, and I think maybe defining it will help everyone. I really hope it's a positive thing. I hope it helps everyone. I hope it brings a voice for the citizens that feel like they don't have a voice, that they can go to the county commissioners and that they can work hand in hand, and that county commissioners then also give cover really to the local health boards. So
okay.
I hope it's a positive thing.
Thank you. Edie, you've got the mic.
Thank you. Well, as you said earlier, this is my 6th session, my 2nd term as a senator for Jefferson County and Butte Silver Bow. And this session, I have decided to do the session here at the House out of an office here. And I chose to do that because of the COVID-19. So from day one, the day we took our oath, I've been in my office. I even took the oath here sitting at my office. And I found that to be very odd, but it worked. There are about 10 of us in the Senate. I couldn't speak for the House how many people are using Zoom, but we use the Zoom for our meetings in committee. And then when we want to talk to our bill drafters, we use what they call Teams. And so between the two Zoom and Teams, we're making it work, and it's been pretty successful so far. And that's a major accomplishment for me because I'm always nervous with new technology. So right now I'm currently serving on the tax committee, and we meet Monday through Friday. Usually we start our meetings at 8, but because we've had kind of a lull in the action right now, we haven't been meeting until 9. And then I also serve on the Fish and Game Committee, and we meet Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 until we're done hearing the bills. And I also serve on the Education Committee, which meets Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And on the Education Committee, I serve as the Vice Chair for the Democrats. So a couple of the bills that I've brought forward so far is SB 21, which was a cleanup bill for lobbyist fees. The money was, the lobbyists are charged $150 to be lobbyists for the 2-year period. And that money was divided into several different pots, and to make things easier, they just took the money and they're going to put it into the general fund. And then the other one was SB, SB 98, which was a new funding that I had brought forward for schools. Currently, when schools are doing their base aid funding when the state is giving base aid funding. The current formula uses CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. And that just, the Consumer Price Index measures and examines the weighted averages of prices of baskets and consumer goods and services purchased by households. And it really isn't used to track company business and school employers. So I have suggested to use ECI, which is Employment Cost Index. And that uses, in that index, they have an elementary and secondary school index that is better used to calculate inflation and capture the increased costs that schools spend every year to operate. And so this would have given schools more flexibility in their budgets, and it could have also helped with teacher recruitment and retention, which is a big problem that we have here in the state of Montana. And actually, that's a problem we have all over the United States. The bill did die in committee because of cost. The bill had cost $25 million for 2024 and 25 combined. And I knew going into the committee that it probably would die because of the amount of money associated with it. But I felt it was an important conversation to have to raise awareness that there is another index to use instead of the CPI. And I felt like it was a successful hearing, because even though the bill died, several people had said that they had never thought about using ECI. And so I'm hoping that in the future, this comes up in conversations and we'll be able to look at this idea a lot better and hopefully use it, giving school districts more money. Let's see. Currently, I am working on a couple other bills that I'm working on an EMS study, and it's a resolution that is requesting the interim committees to study the viability and sustainability of Montana's emergency medical services. And this bill was brought to me by a constituent. And just to name a few things that it does, we're asking the committee to review the reports and studies about the EMS system and medical services. Also to review how recruitment and retention, education, funding, medical oversight, and other issues affects availability of EMS response, and particularly in our rural communities. Another bill that was brought to me by a constituent is a bill to identify people who have communication disorders using their driver's license, so that if a police officer or an emergency responder is working with a person, they know that there's a communication disorder. And this would be like a little mark or a stamp on a person's driver's license. And another bill that's important to me is school-based mental health funding. And I'm asking for 5% of funds that are generated from tax on the liquor, beer, and wine to be appropriated for grants used for schools so that they can apply the money to mental health services that they provide to their students. And currently, I have been watching some of the bills that are in long range planning for House Bill 12 to help Jefferson County. And these bills are just being heard right now. And so I couldn't tell you anything as far as what's happening with the bills, because the hearings are just beginning this week. So I think that's about it for right now. And I think
Thanks.
Martha did a really great job of explaining the process of how we do our bills and what happens. So I don't think I need to elaborate on that, but you did a great job.
Okay, Edie, two quick questions. The the bill that you are launching on school-based mental health services, what are the prospects for that, do you think?
I think that it has some potential. I have been talking to people who like the idea. The biggest thing that's in our way right now is funding, but this is a tax that there has been statutory appropriations for before. So I think I have a pretty good chance. Stay positive, right?
Well, I know that's important to you. Yeah.
Yes.
You also mentioned the bill to help identify people who have communications disorders via their driver's license. Where did that come from? How did that emerge?
I had a constituent email me telling me that he had a son who is able to drive, but he's nervous to have his son drive in case something happens where he would be pulled over by the police or something else would happen. And so he thought maybe it would be a good idea to have some kind of identification mark on the driver's license. And we talked about it. I talked to the Department of Justice and they love the idea. And so we're all putting our heads together, and right now it's just in draft form, but it will be coming out soon.
Good, thank you. So I want to get into the questions from our webinar participants. I will warn in advance that I have edited some of these down, including the first one, which comes from David and Susan Hemian of Montana City. And Edie, this connects directly to what you discussed on education support. So David and Susan, right, we'd like to know your views on what will happen in this session to help Jefferson County's various school districts. The problems within the county are so different. Boulder's declining student population, Montana City's continued growth. We're interested in your take on moving Montana up and out of its relative unstable and lagging condition for education funding. Local support for taxes is important, but the state has to up its funding support to ensure that schools in rural areas are not left behind. If ever there was a bipartisan but tough nut to crack, it's Montana education funding, as it is perennially and as it is in most states. So either of you or both can choose to answer, and we should, whoever wants to dig in.
I'm happy to let the senator go first. She probably has much more experience than me, but I'd love to hear what she has to say.
Well, I agree that over the years that our property taxes have gone up a lot, and not just for school funding, but for other things that we choose to vote on in our communities. Now I talked about Senate Bill 90 or Senate Bill 98 about the funding the ECI using that cost index. That would have brought $25 million to the school districts from the state. I do see a lot of bills that are coming to us through the committee that bills that offer tax breaks to the wealthiest of our citizens or big corporations. And I don't believe that those are the ones that we should be looking at. And we need to put forward bills that would provide an income tax credit to our working Montanans facing property taxes and our homeowners, helping them out, and even the renters. And I know that there's been some legislation that's been proposed. There's also been other legislation that's been proposed, excuse me, to help with Social Security income exempt from state income tax. So we just need to keep working together and find a way to fund our schools and not out-tax our citizens out of their homes. And I believe that Montanans deserve to keep more of their hard-earned dollars so our economy can recover from businesses and businesses can continue to grow.
There's one thing that I've learned from being on the state administration, there's not enough money to go around. It is so hard. And we're looking, we don't have a lot of money this year. So we've been told by appropriations, just know that, yes, we would love to, help the schools. Yes, we would love to cut veteran income tax. We'd love to do all these wonderful things. But when you cut somewhere, you have to increase somewhere else. And so that I'm learning that whole process. And, we have a equalization funding in our, I would say in our calculation for school funding that hopefully will help those rural schools. I think part of my bill, it doesn't necessarily have to do with the funds, it's more of giving those rural schools the opportunity to learn subjects to maximize each student's possible, to maximize their learning ability, quite frankly. And so I'm trying to figure out ways that, say, if one school district doesn't say offer French, and the next one over does, how can we somehow maximize that student's ability to learn French, but stay at, say, Montana City, and it's offered at Clancy? Or I'm working through maximizing the students' abilities. There's such a big catalog of courses in AA schools, and such a smaller one at those rural schools. And growing up in a Class B district, I know what that's like. And then seeing I have 2 teenagers, and to see the variety of courses they're allowed to take now is absolutely amazing to me. And it's just a great opportunity. And I want all kids to have that opportunity. So I'm trying to work out how I can do that, and how I can help those kids in the rural communities.
So Marta, just to explain, when you referred earlier to equalization for rural schools, were you talking about funding?
Funding. So there's a funding, and it's kind of complex. And I have charts if anybody that I'm trying to work through, especially as a freshman legislator, that if anybody, I think you can actually get them online. And if you have time, there's a plethora of information that our state government has on their website, especially the legislative website. So, but we were going to talk about that later, maybe how they can look up information. So
We will.
yeah.
Good. Edie, anything to add before we go on to the next?
I agree with Martha that the school formula funding is very, very complicated. And it took me years to finally get it under control in my mind. So it is very complicated. And I don't see it getting any easier over the years.
Okay. Our next question comes from Terry Minow of Boulder. She writes, "Thank you, Marta, for voting for the state pay plan. We have so many state employees who live in this county, and a pay increase is very important to our communities. Could both of you comment on the anti-union bills that have been introduced this session?" And by that, I believe she's referring to 2 right-to-work bills that basically would bar unions from requiring dues or other fees in unionized workplaces. Terry writes, "It seems like a bad time to attack unions when workers and our economy are suffering, and Montana wages are some of the lowest in the nation." Who would like to address that?
I'd be happy to start. The only time I've actually really worked with the unions was when I was a school board trustee here in Montana City. And quite frankly, I had a very positive working relationship with them. And so I have the utmost respect for the association here. A couple times we had an issue brought forth that they wanted to make everyone be a part of the union. And every time I said, no, it's always been a long-standing belief of mine that if you want to become a teacher, if you want to become a nurse, because I have a couple nurses in my family, you shouldn't be required. I understand the reason behind it. But I don't think you should be required. And I think with the new administration, there will be some sort of changes coming down. I read Representative Bill Mercer's bill a little bit about the language in there saying, you have to provide documentation. I'd have to dive a little more into that. I would say I'm not that well versed in that, but that my experience has been, I understand the reasons behind why people join, and that I've had really good experiences dealing and negotiating with the union that I had the opportunity to work with. So.
So first of all, I want everybody to know that I am a proud member of the Butte Teachers Union here in Butte. And so I just, I feel that people are not forced to join a union when they take a job. They choose to join the union, and they're not forced to have the dues deducted from their paycheck. But I do believe that it makes sense to have dues deducted from your paycheck. Just like when I belonged to the YMCA, I had those dues taken out of my paycheck, and it just makes sense to me. I think it's easier to pay your dues, and you're less likely to forget. As far as the right to work laws, I believe it makes it harder for people to form unions and bargain for better wages, bargain for benefits and better working conditions. And I think that Montanans should not have to work multiple jobs to make ends meet, or to work in unsafe places. And I think I feel it's an assault on unions that's happening here during this session. And I think it's an unnecessary assault. I believe that our nurses, our law enforcement, our firefighters, teachers, and that's just a few to name of the people who have been delivering essential services to every Montana community during this pandemic, deserves better than to have an attack on their union. And again, I just want to say I'm a very strong supporter of unions.
Edie, could you provide some context?
Sorry?
Could you provide some context here? As I understand it, these right to work bills rather, have come up at pretty much every session, and have not passed. So are the prospects different this time, or is the legislation fundamentally changed as far as you know?
As far as I know, the bills are the same. I've looked at it and it looked the same to me. And I just think that the dynamics of the session have changed, and we have more people that believe in the right to work laws and want to see them instated. And that's why that they will probably pass.
They've acquired momentum. Yep. Thank you. Okay, the next question is from Rebecca Johnson from Montana City. She asks, do you support Senate Bill 107? And I'm really impressed that everybody is throwing out these bill numbers. Like we have people are on the game here. So SB 107 would extend the deadline for regular voter registration to up to 10 days before Election Day. Rebecca works as a voter registration volunteer for the League of Women Voters and Montana Women Vote. And she says, I strongly believe this legislation would help ensure more Montanans have access to registering to vote and would help lift the burden on election administrators.
So I have to be honest with you. A lot of times when people say SB something something or HB something something, I have to look it up because I hear so many numbers all the time. So, but I am impressed too that people know these numbers. But yes, I do support Senate Bill 107. From what I understand, during the 2000 elections, they actually had taken the 30-day registration and moved it down to 10 days instead of 30 days because of the COVID. And many election officers throughout the state of Montana reported that they thought it had worked very well, and they reported no problems happening. And so, you know, as long as our people who work in the elections are happy with it and they think it's working well, you bet, let's have it.
I feel that I printed it out, Senate bill. I'm not sure if has it been introduced?
Yes, Bryce Bennett is the person who's carrying the bill, and I can't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday that they had the hearing on it.
So I, having not seen that, I think we have a great election system. I would like to personally talk to our clerk and recorder, Bonnie Ramey, and crew. I think she's done a phenomenal job. Since I've lived here, I've always been very impressed with the office down in Boulder. So I think it's important to, you know, run ideas by the people that are in the trenches, if you will. I think we have a great process, and we should always strive to be even better. And with all the, as you've seen, the numbers of people moving into Montana, I think any chance we get to make it more secure and more efficient, and just more accurate, we need to do it, because I think voting is such a privilege and a responsibility and should be a priority. We should know when the date is and get down there and register. And so I would like to look more into Senate Bill 107 and really run it by our own clerk and recorder.
Good. Thank you both. Our next question comes from Suzanne and Keith Schultz, believe of Boulder. They thank you for your service to our beautiful state. So do we all. And they write, we recently encountered an intoxicated driver in a serious accident near our home. We know from experience that the driver has driven intoxicated before. Is there any proposed legislation emerging in this session to toughen our laws and ensuing punishment for DUI?
I had to look and see, and I did find that there is a House bill that has been, I don't think it's set for a hearing yet, but it has been drafted, and it's House Bill 115 that will increase penalties for DUIs. But that's the only thing I could tell you about the bill.
And I also looked that up and found House Bill 115 and printed it out, but I haven't seen it introduced on the floor, so it will strengthen. If you want me to read a quick blurb from it, I'd be happy to do so.
Yeah, why don't you? That'd be
It
great.
says the person, so it crossed out some other language, and it said if they previously sentenced under a subsection 1A and 1B, which this is how the bills are written, the person shall be punished by a fine of not less than $5,000 or more than $10,000, and by imprisonment in the state prison for a term of not more than 10 years. The person is not eligible for a deferred imposition of sentence, and the first 3 years of the sentence may not be suspended. That's one section. So I do think it is very sad that we have that many DUIs and that we have that many recurring DUIs that one person can have. I think that is, I was stationed in Europe for about 3 years, and their laws over there are very strict. You lose your license. You know, it's not, you get the chance and then you get back in a car and take another chance. And, you know, when people's lives are at stake, I think there needs to be stricter laws. So.
And I'm pretty sure there have been bills in previous sessions getting a toughening up DUI laws. So I imagine that this bill builds on that history. We will look into that.
I do know that same person previously in an email, and I haven't had the chance to respond, the Schultzes, asked me about the daylight savings time. So I actually did a little research on getting rid of daylight savings time. And I heard that a lot of the reason it hasn't passed is because a lot of ranchers and farmers, that time is very important to them, the light and how, so that's what I've heard in previous sessions, that those are the people that oppose it.
And is there a bill
Has to do with working and working hours.
Okay, there is a bill this session to do the same.
Senator,
I am not sure if there is. Is there?
Yeah, Senator McNally has one in drafting right now, and the only title on it is revising daylight savings time.
And is that true, Senator, that is what, have you seen that in past sessions, and that is why it has failed?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you, Marta. Okay. Briar Herrick from Basin says, first, Marta, thank you for voting no on House Bill 113. This is the bill that would have barred medical providers from prescribing treatments for transgender youth. I am also, Briar says, concerned about House Bill 102. This is the bill that has been approved by the House Judiciary, which would prohibit the Montana Board of Regents and the Montana University System from regulating the carrying of firearms on college campuses across the state. So Briar would like to know your position on this bill?
Who, mine? Okay,
Oh,
so,
no, both, sorry, either
okay.
vote.
Oh, okay.
So House Bill 102 actually was a straight party line vote. And of course, being a Republican and pro Second Amendment, I really try to wrap, when I'm looking at all these, some of these bills are so complex, and not necessarily straightforward. And House Bill 102, I talked to the sponsor, trying to understand everything. And listening to the testimony of a former policeman who talked about having the ability to protect yourself, because it just seems like people are able to get more guns, even online. When I've seen that over the last year, that the bad apples are going to get the guns. And I listened to the sponsor, and he said this is giving those college kids the ability to protect themselves on campus. And the universities can still regulate the firearms, but it just doesn't deny those young adults the right to possess. And so this same ex-policeman and also ex-veteran who got up and talked about it said his son goes to school in Colorado, and they have a concealed carry on campus, and they have no issues. And then the other part of it that I thought was so important to me is that it's still protected personal property rights. So you could put up a sign and say, we don't allow guns on our premises, to include banks and bars. So when you hit that green button, there's a lot at stake, I've learned over the last month. And at times it's not easy. So.
So do you want me to go ahead and answer that too?
Yes.
Oh, if you like, yeah.
Sure. I have no problem with it. I do believe in our Second Amendment. My husband hunts. We've had guns in our family for years, as far as sport, for hunting and just target practicing. But I believe that House Bill 102 could create some dangers and some burdens on our schools. And so I just don't think guns have any place on a school campus unless you are the police or security. So I just will not be supporting that bill.
Good. Thank you both. Our last question comes from Janice Frisch, and it is about the spending on public health and human services. She writes regarding the state operations budget with specific concerns for public health and human services and developmental disabilities. She is concerned by reports she's read of cuts to direct operations as well as to services to individuals. She wonders, will those cuts reduce services for targeted case management and Helena Industries? And will salaries be increased for those working for private corporations that run group homes, adult day services, and family support services? Rather than cuts, Janice writes, there should be increases in services. Rather than decreasing taxes to entice more people to come to Montana, it seems we should take care of our human services infrastructure first. So, who would like to address that?
I will have to say, being a brand new legislator, and I'm not part of the Health and Human Services, I'm not part of that committee. I do, so I can't really actually speak to the bill and to that extent, but hope very much that we can protect those vulnerable people that need protected. And I can certainly, Janice sends a lot of great emails, and I really appreciate it. And if I could pass that on to maybe someone in Health and Human Services or on the committee, I'm happy to do so.
Thanks. Edie?
Well, I know that there is some legislation coming forward to help lower cost of prescription drugs and increase overall transparency of the costs. And as far as the cuts go, I hope that we don't see any major cuts in our services, because I won't be able to support any cuts in our services. You know, like Marta, I don't serve on Health and Human Services, but you know, I do talk with the people that do, and I know that we will fight any cuts that are brought forward to us.
Good. Thank you both. And thanks to all the folks who submitted these really thoughtful questions. Do appreciate it. I'd like to spend a few minutes before we end just showing off some resources that that folks should know about if you want to stay informed and engaged with what is going on in the legislature. So the first thing, shoot. Okay, hope you can see that. Are we looking at the legislature site? Great. Okay, if you don't know about this site, and the people who are throwing out the bill numbers probably do know about this. If you don't, this is the official legislature site, leg.mt.gov. It is really well done. I have to say, very well designed and easy to navigate. You can look up local legislators. You can search for bills, either by number or by subject. If you're a budget geek, you can geek out here. Follow the budget analyses and the subcommittees schedules. Stay in touch with that. You can watch the meetings live. I believe that the recordings also are archived for most sessions, at least. And this is really interesting. This year, for the first time, you can request to testify before the Senate or the House committees by Zoom. And it looks very easy. I have not done this, but you basically pick the bill and the committee that you are interested in. You say whether you are for or against. You write in your comment, and then you can request to testify. And Edie, Marta, I'm not sure if you request to testify that you will, or just that the chairman have the right to pick and choose. Do you know how that works?
No, if you request to testify, then you can testify. The chairman can't pick and choose.
Right. And so, but make sure, because we had a hearing in local government, and make sure you adhere to the 24-hour prior timeline, because we had some people, maybe 10 more people that wanted to testify on one of the bills, that they didn't add their name and get that in that 24 hours before. So they were unable to testify. But if you're on the list and you make it on time, the chairman is very good in my committees. It took a little bit to get it down, but we all now, you know, we do the people in person and then the people on Zoom, and it's been amazing. Our legislative staff, a shout out to them. They work so hard, and I've been really impressed by the people there, and just the hardworking and the kindness to reach out and help.
That's
But
weird.
Great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the legislature site is a great place to start. This is a kind of a tip sheet that I hope to email to everybody who is registered. It also will appear on the paper this week. So there is the legislature site, which includes the links to watching sessions live and the public testimony link, which we just saw. These are the contacts for Senator McClafferty and Representative Bertolio. This is the contact information listed on the legislature site. They are both quite responsive. There is great news coverage of the legislature as well. Not as much like, 20 years ago, maybe 30. Many newspapers in the state sent reporters to the legislature every 2 years. That doesn't happen now. However, Montana Free Press does very good, I would say very balanced, deep coverage, including daily and weekly podcasts, as well as text news and feature reporting. Montana Public Radio, the same, very broad and deep daily coverage. The University of Montana Community News Service actually does surprisingly excellent reporting, daily reporting by student reporters on the proceedings. That does not have its own website. Some of it runs on Montana Public Radio. A lot of it is published daily and weekly by newspapers across the state. And I should also add that the State House Bureau Chief for the lead papers, Holly Mickle, is very good. So there is all of that reporting to keep up. And of course, we will be back a month from now, give or take, February 28th, 6:30 p.m. I will be sending out the link to register for that. Even if you have registered for this, you need to re-register for the next session. It will be the same link, but a link to a different Zoom. With that, thanks so much, Edie, Marta, for joining this and for committing to keeping us informed as the legislature takes its course over the next 3 months. Any final words?
I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to thank you and BTAC for having this forum tonight. I also want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening. Things move fast up at this session. They always have. And so if you have any concerns or questions or just even want to tell me how you feel about something, please feel free to pick up the phone or send me an email and let me know what's on your mind. And my information was on the line just a moment ago that you could see. And so I'm happy to help you in any way I can. Thanks.
Thank you for having this forum. I really appreciate being able to reach out and chat with the constituents. And I too reiterate the speed of which this process goes, and feel free to email or call. I do check my emails. I get the slips also if you call into the information center and leave a message. I do read those as well. So thank you very much for having us here tonight.
We're grateful to have you. This has been a great hour. Thanks for joining. Have a good night.
You.
Thank you.